Hey everybody, I'm Kristin Hostetter. Welcome to another episode of Straight Talk. I'm really excited about my guest today. Stephanie Maez is here with me. She is the new Managing Director of Outdoor Foundation, which is the philanthropic arm of Outdoor Industry Association. Stephanie, how are you? Thanks for being here.
I'm well. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, let's get right into it. You are fairly new in this role.
Yes.
I'd love to hear more about your journey into this role.
Absolutely. You are right on. I am not only new to this role, but I'm new to the outdoor industry. I come to this role from primarily a public policy, civic engagement, political background. I'm a former state legislator out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and have had the pleasure of running several state-based nonprofits with policy focus, some of which was on the environment and on outdoor recreation, but really around mobilizing voters for systems change. And so, one might ask, well, why the Outdoor Foundation? And so for me, this role really, and this job is so much more than just a job, that this is what brought me here. And I pinch myself. I tell my board that my dirty little not so secret is that I would actually pay to do this work. I feel so privileged to be able to get up every morning and do the work that we're doing. I come to this position from a very personal experience. While I was serving in the state legislature, my son was wrongfully accused of murder, and he was not aware of the crime, had no participation, let alone commit a murder. He was 18 years old, and I was young when I had him, and I was serving in the legislature. And as a mother, it was devastating, and we're still healing from it. He spent a year in jail for this. And during that year, Kristin, I think it's fair to say that I truly almost lost myself. And it was through the outdoors that I was able to really cope, to heal, and experiencing firsthand the transformative benefits of the outdoors has just been a life-changing experience. And now I've been I really feel driven. I feel like this is my purpose. This is my life's work. And so I can use the skills and the experience that I have in the policy space and the program and nonprofit space, fundraising and philanthropy, to really continue to be an evangelist for this work. And I think it's also important to note, growing up in Albuquerque, I grew up in a really poor neighborhood, and access to the outdoors was not really an option for us. And so myself and my little brother, and so I can really identify with many of the folks that participate in our Thrive programs, our youth. And so it was through actually being able to go to my grandparents' cabin as a young person, once, twice, maybe 3 times a year, depending on the year, up in the San Juan Mountains in southern Colorado, that it planted that seed for me. And when that seed was planted and all of the traumatic events unfolded with my son, there was no place like the outdoors and the mountains that was able to really calm me down and to bring me back and to give me the strength to persevere through such a traumatic situation.
Oh my gosh. Well, I really was not expecting this story. I guess I wasn't very prepared for this. And as a mother of 2 boys, it's incredibly moving, and I can't imagine what you've been going through.
Well, thank you for sharing and for allowing me to share my story. And I really wasn't sure how much detail I wanted to go into on this particular forum, but I feel like it's so important to talk about these things, because families, everybody has something, and I think oftentimes with social media and, the need to just put on this everything is perfect white picket fence facade is just, it's not real. And I want to be real, and I want to be, it's painful and it sucks, and there's healing and resiliency and faith that I tap into that I wouldn't have if I didn't have the opportunity to experience this adversity.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I think a lot of people can relate in some capacity to some of the things that you just shared with us. Really grateful that you feel safe enough to do that, and thank you for that. Can you explain, or can you tell us a little bit about your first introduction, as you remember it, to the outdoors? Because I think nature and the outdoors is a way of healing for so many people.
So my mom would take us to, there was this duck pond. There is this duck pond over at the University of New Mexico. And so, she worked her butt off. And so when we were able to really spend quality time together outside, it just felt so expansive and free and healing. And at that time, when you're 5 and 6 years old, you're just enjoying and just wanting, just experiencing and soaking it all in. I remember the ducks would chase me because we would take stale bread or stale tortillas, and we'd feed the ducks and they would chase me. And then I also remember her parents, my grandparents, had a cabin out at Vallecito Lake in southern Colorado. And I'd go out and spend, spring break there, summertime there. And I remember feeling like at that point, as I was getting older and into middle school, it really felt like the Twilight Zone. I felt like I was in just this completely different space, which I was, but it really truly felt, as we would drive out of the city, it just felt like I was going into a whole new world. But I say all that to say, having the seeds of the outdoors truly planted at an early age for me, while I didn't get those repeat experiences throughout the year because we did live in much more of a urban area where green spaces and access to the outdoors isn't as feasible, which is a real barrier I suspect we'll talk about in the future and further in the conversation. But I was able to take my son out to the cabin, to my grandparents' cabin. I mean, you can see just the richness that the outdoors brings. And I don't know, I can't shout it from the rooftops loud enough.
It's amazing. And I think you bring up a really good point about the fact that you don't need to hike down into the Grand Canyon or climb Mount Rainier or hike the Appalachian Trail in order to experience the benefits of being outdoors. Let's talk about Thrive Outside. Your favorite topic probably, right?
One of them.
So tell us what Thrive Outside is and how the program works.
Absolutely. So Thrive Outside was started about 1.5 years, almost 2 years ago, by my predecessor, Lisa Annenberg. And it is the Outdoor Foundation's primary grant-making vehicle. And what we're doing is we're investing in a collective impact model where we're funding, through multi-year capacity building grants, networks of organizations in regions throughout the country. Currently, we're in 4 regions. We're in San Diego, Atlanta, Grand Rapids, and Oklahoma City. And the structure is that there is a backbone organization that sort of serves as the kind of hub. And then they are convening coalitions of partner organizations that are specifically dedicated to increasing youth participation in outdoor spaces, primarily from communities of color. It's just really exciting to see the learning that's taking place. That's the other sort of key component of the Thrive Outside model, is that our networks are learning from each other. We have a very robust qualitative and quantitative evaluation program where we're able to measure our impact on both increasing, participation in the outdoors, but also what does that actually mean for the kids that are participating? How is this impacting around metrics around, positive youth development, grit, confidence, sense of place, sense of space, navigating adversity?
Wow. Well, it's an amazing program for sure. I'd love it if you could give us and I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but can you give me an example, maybe a snapshot of a kid who's had an experience in one of your Thrive Outside communities?
I would say one example maybe is in San Diego. There are some great programs running through the San Diego Outdoor Outreach, which is the one of the key partner organizations of the Thrive Outside San Diego. And, we'll see youth from, 8 years old up through, into their early 20s. And what we've learned within those, the other key variable is that these are about repeat experiences. So these kids are coming to programs, multiple times, and really the theory, right, is that after experiencing a certain number of repeat experiences outside, it becomes a habit. And that's what we want to do, is we want to inspire the outdoor habit with these kids. And so, they'll go kayaking, or they'll go for a hike with their counselors or the volunteer staff. And what we're finding is, as they have multiple repeat experiences, that their confidence level increases, their approach to adversity and being able to take on challenges becomes stronger. So it's a lot. It's really robust. And I would encourage your audience to check out our website. We have our 2020 impact report that really outlines a lot of that. And there's actually some links to videos that really tell the story much more of a, direct on the ground way from the participants themselves.
I read that Thrive Outside has some pretty ambitious goals for the next 3 to 4 years. Is it true that you're going to be expanding into 16 cities over the next 3 years? And if so, how on earth do you create a rollout of that scale and size?
Excellent question. And it is exciting and it is ambitious. And I'm also very confident that we're going to meet those goals, especially given the impact that we're seeing in communities and the level of interest. So yes, 16 cities in 3 years, 32 cities in 5 to 7 years and beyond. In order to go into a city, as I said, our theory is that we really need to make investments that are specifically capacity building and about strengthening the infrastructure. And in doing so, we're serving as a catalyst to help these networks of organizations become fully self-sustaining after their 3-year grant cycle is up with the Outdoor Foundation. And so as we're bringing on new cohorts, old cohorts are sort of cycling off from a grant receiving standpoint. However, what we do want to continue to do is fully resource those cohorts that are post their 3-year grant cycle to be able to continue to participate in the Thrive learning community and to continue with the evaluation and data collection. This is a new and innovative model. There are other organizations that are doing similar programming work, but not necessarily on this scale, and definitely not through a collective impact model.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. There's so much competition out there right now, right, for funding among nonprofits and foundations and affiliate groups, affinity groups, advocacy groups, all looking for funding and resources. So what's your strategy for competing in that really competitive landscape for that crucial funding that you need to make this program successful?
It's interesting, Kristin, that you brought this up. And I think that it goes back to my approach to both fundraising and life in general. Like, I think that if we have a competitive scarcity mindset, there are finite resources. If we are working together and those other organizations, foundations, programs that are running really great program, if we're able to come together and collaborate and figure out where we can reduce, duplication and increase efficiencies, then we can maximize the dollar that exists for funding programs like these. Yes, it's competitive. And I think that if we are able to sort of shift how we approach from collectively in this sector, organizations doing this work, I think that sky's the limit. And I think there's enough resources to fund all of our great work.
I've spoken to so many people on this topic, and opinions vary a lot. Some people see really positive change in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion in our industry, and others feel like we're just not making the progress that we need. We've covered diversity, equity, inclusion in our brand, in our titles, on our site, on our website, in our stories a lot. We will continue to do that. It's really important that we elevate voices and keep pushing our industry on these fronts. I'm just curious, what's your opinion on state of diversity in the outdoor industry? And do you have any in your specific role, which I think gives you the opportunity to really touch these communities that we're talking about, what can people watching here really do to move the needle and quickly get more people of color not only outside and experiencing nature, but working in leadership roles in our industry?
See, that's critical, Kristin. I think that systems change and who sits in what seats and what seats of power matter. And I think to your question about where are we at in terms of our work on this, on diversity, equity, and inclusion, absolutely, we have a lot of work to do. But guess what? So does, X industry on the other side of the spectrum. And so does, in my former political life, so does the public administrative and the bureaucratic side and the public sector side. We have a lot of work to do. I think I'm inspired and encouraged by how far we have come. When I came into this role and having seen the work that was done specifically around creating a DEI task force, looking at operationally, how are we getting our own organizations in order in terms of OIA and the Outdoor Foundation before we seek to prescribe anything to anybody in any industry, is huge. We have to be willing to have those uncomfortable conversations and look in. And even, as a woman of color, I feel like I personally have a lot of work to do. Racial identity is only one piece of what inclusivity means. And so, in learning and growing and being okay with being like, I don't know what to do on this issue, or I don't know how what I'm saying might potentially be harmful to somebody who doesn't identify in the same way that I do, whether it's on gender or race so we have come a long way. And we have a long way to go. Systems change happens when we're able to have power in places where there is an opportunity for leadership. And that happens through pipeline development.
We're both women. We're both in leadership positions in the outdoor industry. I know OIA has a lot of women leaders in its structure as well. How do you think the industry is doing in terms of elevating women in leadership roles and sort of closing that gender gap?
Again, being an outdoor industry sort of non-insider, I don't have a lot of the historical context necessarily, but as I'm getting up to speed and really getting a sense of the lay of the land, it seems to me that, women are becoming more and more represented in leadership positions. When you look, as you said, at the OIA board, at our board at the Outdoor Foundation, the sort of leadership executive level positions within the organizations are occupied by women, and I think that that's great. And I think that we're just a small segment of the outdoor industry. And so when I look at, across the board at some of the larger industry companies, and you look at, the C-suite, and you look at who is in those positions, I think we still have some work to do on what women in those positions of power look like. And I think that it can't just be counting the number of women executives. I think that we also have to look at what sort of roles and positions those executives are. Are they truly positions of influence? Are they really, or is it, we talk about this in other areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion, particularly around race and ethnicity. Is it more of a performative approach, or are these roles actually shifting the culture and making it even more inclusive for young girls to really see themselves in those positions of power? Because that's where I think it starts, is that real culture shift. And, it's like the old saying, or I guess it's not an old saying, but you often hear, women are assertive and they come across as the B word, which I almost just said, and I'm pretty proud of myself that I didn't actually say the word because I don't know what your policies are. But, but men are assertive and they're leaders. And that's crap. That's absolutely crap. I love the fact that my 13-year-old daughter is not afraid to speak her mind, say her opinion, and take a leadership role and be assertive. And I think that I'm trying to model that behavior and not be afraid of being called the B word, you know. And it's also about creating allyships and really seeking and having an expectation that men in positions of power are being allies and supportive of both policies that lift up women in leadership and actually having women in leadership and the way that they interact with women in leadership. So
Stephanie, it's been so wonderful talking with you. Thank you so much for sharing your story so openly. It's had such an impact on me. I know it's going to have an impact on everyone who watches this.
I can't believe how quickly this conversation flew by, and I hope that we can do it again.
And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of Straight Talk. We've got lots more great conversations like this, so check it out on our website.